Yeah.
Sometimes.
I thought one thing you missed about that magnesium piece was that which Roxy's touched on, which was the difference between live players and artificial players, so that they wouldn't have the same energy possibly. It's just a thought that crossed my mind. I don't know if that is applicable.
I don't know. What do you think, Roxy? Is live better than digital?
It must carry energy.
Well, not always. Depends on who's playing. But I like replay. I like electronic. I like technology.
Yeah, you're biased. You grew up with that. That's your genetics. Métier.
Yes.
Hey, you like that?
Zappa. Zappa said.
You like that, Aya?
What you're missing is the eyebrows. Yeah, there's some nuances, but it depends on the music. Like acoustic instruments, you have different types of hitting the string, like pizzicato, legato, or different types of effects. And if you have a sampler, you have to have many samplers to make it sound like a real instrument. Then the dynamics, you have to think about these changes in the volumes and the different feelings. And sometimes the humans speed up very little, or they slow down very little, and the machines are like in perfect time. And yeah, this musical not perfect is what make it sometimes more beautiful.
Precisely.
That is the machine perfection.
I think also with Fukushima and the radiation, there will be a more, that will impact how we hear things, and with our skins different, our ears will be slightly different, and we'll hear more through our actual bones within, as our hearing hears anyway, through our, nasal, through the bones structured around our face as well as our ears. And so the whole musical scene may change to, like when a person's deaf, they can still hear all the music, like that famous drummer lady, I can't think of her name, but she could feel the vibration and everything. So maybe we'll come to a space where music will be more vibrational. I don't know. It's in transition, isn't it? I mean, we're going to hear trumpets and things, so that we've been told. So, but I don't know how much of this will survive with, the change in atmosphere. I'm just speculating.
Yes. Yeah. I'm going to send Bob something for Cha. This is Peaches in Regalia, but this is a version with a fagot and a guitar. So it's very different from what we usually hear. It's like a more human, more acoustic version.
Thank you.
But I think I like both. I like both things. I like the rock and roll and these, for example. Yeah, it's different environments. And, like I said before, this is something I learned from Ian and Bob. To look into everything and enjoy.
Maybe it will cross boundaries as well, the newer music, because people who have their inbuilt beats and rhythms from, depending on their culture, will be adapting wherever they are, and so they'll sort of ascend to a point of like the point of a triangle, to appreciate this newer music, which will sort of gather all the points of the triangle with all the different types of music into one specific point at the top. You know, the lowest common denominator will go up as it ascends to the point. I mean, it'd be interesting to know what kind of music Ion likes.
He's making his playlist. And
I know.
There's also a music that is at the level of the ions, at the level of the cells. At all levels, there's different music that we're listening without being aware, because it's not for the ears, but it's at the level of frequency and vibration.
That's exactly what I meant. Exactly. Yeah. Mm. And we may be being bombarded with that music anyway, with all the frequencies that we're swimming in at the moment, that we may not just, you know, we may tune out, rather like our eyesight range or our hearing range is, the options are huge, but we only have a very limited range, it would seem, in our current design. So maybe Bob and you are kind of developing our frontiers to expand to, you know, encompass a much broader spectrum than we would previously. Plus, with Dr. Carolyn's completement formulas, maybe that will happen as well.
Yes. Cool. Say yes or no. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Bob, play Inventionis Mater. That's mother of invention in Latin. This is a duo. I think they're Italian. And this is a version of Peaches and Regalia. It's acoustic. Where is our maestro, Bob?
Maybe he's been muted.
Maybe he's drinking something.
Mm. I'm getting some ice cream. If you Gosh. So, Roxy, how did you manage? I'm fascinated to know how you film Bob in restaurants and places. Do you actually hold a large camera with a sound thing and everything, or do you have a kind of discreet little mobile that films Bob? How do you do it? You know, like when you're in the restaurant and in the cemetery and places, or on this.
Well, I had 4 things. I got 2 small video cameras and my cell phone and my tablet.
Oh, so it varies depending on the situation. So when Bob didn't know you were recording him, did you actually have something in your hand or on your shoulder, or is it like candid camera where nobody knows they're being filmed? Which was
no, I had it on my hand, but I think he was watching at the screen of YouTube, so he's not watching me, so he's not aware that
I'm of it. Yeah.
Recording.
Yes, interesting.
But I don't know if he's aware or not.
One thing I found, which I'll mention to you, when Bob played some of the cemetery walkabout.
Yeah, Père Lachaise. The audio.
Lachaise. Some of your sound effects were rather louder, were almost as loud as Bob. So it was quite hard at times to hear what he was saying when he was talking about people.
Yes, this version is not finished. Sometimes I just do the thing like more or less.
Roxy, hold it.
And then I have
Roxy.
to check the volume.
No, there's a confusion. Are you talking about the video or the audio I played, Cha?
The audio.
Yeah, that's a couple of weeks ago, Roxy. I played the audio just to have the discussion. But the video with better quality is now posted. You can watch the original and see what's going on.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
Where
yes, but that's still the mixing. It's the same,
perfect.
More or less. No, so I wanted to upload it yesterday, but it didn't work out. I don't know why. So I have to load it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you've cleaned it up. You've made it better already.
Yes, I think. Yeah, there were some details, like I wanted to put the thing about electromagnetism.
Right.
And but the text was too long, and then all these things with the volumes and different things.
Do you have an?
I put more pictures.
Because it's a lot to manage. Does Roxy have an assistant to help her do all this?
Me.
Yes,
I'm the assistant. Bob's the assistant.
And I have to send the text to Bob to correct them.
Yeah, it's horrible.
To make them
it's
clear.
Unbelievably pre-literate, her script, her text. It's a mixture of, it's like...
No, the thing is, I live in Germany, and the syntax is very different. And then I studied in French all my life, so sometimes I'm not sure if you say things like that.
That's rather charming.
He has to correct.
You should just leave it, because that adds a flavor.
No, we're sick of that. We've got 100 videos with that flavor on it. We're going professional now.
Yes, because usually I always said, okay, I upload it so that Bob sees the thing, but then I'll correct. And then I don't have the time to correct. We have more videos. Like I have a comment on the Flamel video and 2 comments about the cemetery.
It's like
because we have the
goes on and on.
And I had 2 cameras, so this is one video with one of the cameras, but then I have another camera with other things. So,
gosh,
if I I have to go on, and sometimes I just leave it like it is. Like okay.
Yeah, and Cha, there's 100 videos made over the last 2 years, just sitting there in the background. 100.
That's too much to deal with.
Well, you don't have to deal with it. You've got forever.
A professional to help you. I mean, that's really.
No, we don't. No, it'd be no fun.
I'm going to send you the text to correct.
You do it and let the professional do the dirty work for you.
No, you can help.
Yeah, you be the professional. We're naming you professional.
No.
You can send me poems or whatever you like.
Poems.
We're trebling tonight. Trebling.
Trebling?
Yes.
Trebling, yes. Trebling.
Yes.
That's right.
It started with why.
Oh, do you guys need a hit of that? Do we need a hit? You see? That was a heavy time in early 81. Reagan gets shot, and a month later the Pope gets shot. Do you guys realize what was going on? And the same people. And the same people who are showing up. Frank Camper's walking around a nuclear plant in Alabama with 12 other people ready to blow up this nuclear plant. Whoa. Just piles up.
Yeah,
realize that.
But
Reagan gets shot on March 31st. The Pope gets shot, I think, in May. 6 weeks later, a bunch of other stuff that if I kept playing, you'd hear was going on. It's a pretty dramatic time.
You are doing an incredible solo riff there, Bob.
Yeah. I didn't hear enough laughs.
It's like guitar. You got guitar mouth. You got guitar mouth. Serious guitar mouth.
I want laughs. There was one laugh that Roxy laughed at something at one point. Oh yeah, the Jodie Foster picture that drove John Hinckley mad to shoot Reagan.
Yeah.
I don't think it's funny. I think it's horrible.
Yeah, of course, we all know that. We're trying to reinterpret history. We're trying to find the humor in history.
Well, I suppose if you don't laugh, you cry.
No, what I find funny is Bob being a conspirationist.
Yes, the conspiracy liver. I'm Alex Jones, like 30 years before Alex Jones. I'm doing Alex Jones. Well, since you did laugh, well, let's hear a little. What, Bert? Or Michael?
No, I said you are exactly doing, you're definitely doing Alex Jones there.
Alex Jones, yeah. Okay, let's see where it leads.
Joe Jelly, who was at Ronald Reagan's inauguration with Frank Sinatra, and Lisa O'Gelly worked with Miguel Sindona, who's in jail at the time. Why? Because he was a Vatican banker. Okay, then we cut to, let's say, September 81. I got this all memorized, but I'm improvising.
Yeah, the band is slowly leaving. They can't keep up with me. And I'm noticing it. But, maybe I'll operate with one backup.
It's his
now, I say something
he's shrieking.
They're worried about the reputation.
It's painful. You know, who chooses that for their leisure hours to listen to that kind of, you know, it's not very.
The music is painful? Are you saying the music's painful?
Not the music, but his ranting. You know, it's different.
Well, that's me, Cha. Cha, that's me.
Oh, God, well, it's awful.
Am I ranting?
Listen to Alan rant, and at least it's softer and gentler, but that kind of American, you know, Wall Street kind of shouting, you know, with a cigar in their mouth and their feet on the desk,
I was on
slamming their phone down.
I was on a street corner. That was me busking. I was trying to raise some money. I was on a street corner. There's a competing bunch of buskers known as musicians, you know, fighting me.
Oh, gosh.
Bob, you were doing exactly what Frank was doing, Bob.
Bob, play the Invenciones Matter for Chat. That's music.
The what music? Which one?
That's an acoustic version of Pitches in Regalia by a duo.
Did you send it to me?
Yeah.
Okay, but Michael's saying something.
Bob won't like it.
Yeah, like Frank would be commenting on what the audience is doing while he's introducing something, and you're also talking about what's happened, but you're also talking about what's happening as the band departs the stage. You're doing a running commentary on the as well.
Yes, on the environment that I'm making. And you know, way back there, you heard me say, some guy smiles, and I go, he likes it. He's getting it. I'm analyzing the audience reaction. If you respond, I single you out and note what you're doing. But, Cha, think of it as me, the lovable Bob. It's not a street corner, this is me fighting against, and it's going to get really good when the musicians leave. Oh, then it's nice and quiet.
So Dad is going to be shot. Okay, happens 6 days later. Wow, I get the tape on October 8th. And they say, oh,
yeah. Now we're into October 1981. Anwar Sadat gets shot on October 6th, Bob Marshall's birthday. And, so that's Sadat in October 6th, 81.
Oh, no, I got the tape. And what happened? I said, no, he made the tape on the 7th and mailed it to me in Toronto in a courier delivery, so he faked it. But then I called my associates in Washington, and they told me they got the tape on October 4th. So that meant Dr. Beater did make the recording before the 6th of October. So he knew. How did he know? It's something to do with the Export-Import Bank? I don't know. Take a minute. Oh, yeah.
You like that tone? I don't know. I like that tone.
Why? I don't know.
I was trying to figure out if Beater predicted. He made the tape at the end of September. Of could he have really made it at October 7th, not October 6th, and then quickly sent it to me? And so I checked with people in Washington. They said, no, they got the tape October 4th, so we were happy. The beater did do it. He did predict it.
So Sadat gets shot, and the day before he's shot, George Bush is meeting with Mubarak. Mubarak's sitting on the podium with Sadat, and in a hail of bullets, and everybody gets shot except Mubarak. Why? 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 Why?
This is Bob's labyrinth of his mind, back when Bob had a mind.
God, it's like a town crier.
Yes, that's what I'm doing.
Yes, exactly, Charles.
Early rap.
Early rap. That's right. Early rap. All of it. Powerful stuff. It's actually iconic. It contains all that's going to unfold over the next few years with Run DMC, the Beastie Boys, Public Enemy. They're all going to just do fucked up versions of what I did.
So it's like the
Badly
evergreen,
beaver.
the evergreen spilling out of your lips with a vengeance, warning people, like a prophetess announcing
That's right.
what's to come.
I was doing Ezekiel. I was doing Jeremiah, the sweet prophet.
Gracious.
Did you say the evergreens pouring out of my mouth? That's pretty good.
Yes.
You said that?
Yes, I did.
The evergreens pouring out of my mouth, yes. That's never been said
you
before.
were trying to sort of express everything, that you've...
Yeah.
Yes, I can see
Look
that
at the
now.
news.
I thought it was Zappa. I didn't realize it was you. I'm really, honestly...
It's a good compliment. Jesus,
Well,
maybe I am becoming... All these later voices, they're all... Now you can hear the later voices, but I was the original. Yes, you hear Zappa, you hear Lenny Bruce. Now, the thing is, you have to... If you actually wrote out what I'm discussing, it's incredible what was going on in 1980, 81, 82, leading up to the Nuclear War I in September 82. Let's see how quickly I get there.
Regular listeners know that the Bolsheviks have run the Pentagon. We're going to nuke Russia. So the Rockefellers made a tentative alliance with the Russians and had to blow up. They had to cause a problem which involved Argentina and the phony Malvinas. But they really were having problems with Georgia Island. True. This is not funny.
Remember that, the Malvinas War in April 82, March, April.
English.
Yeah.
I'm English. But did you ask Ion which meat sack body of yours produced this?
I have to ask that. No, good point.
Ask
Good point.
because your voice sounds different.
Yes, well, people who knew me back then say my voice changed over the last few years ago. They say, they're shocked. You don't have the same voice, Bob, after the RNA drops and all that, after Ion.
Yes.
But so I'm ranting on there. It's a really significant history. That's why I urge you to read the May Brussels transcript I posted on my Facebook page the other day.
Yes.
Very. Did you look at it, Bert?
No, I just when you mentioned it, I had to find it, and I found it, so I downloaded to read it later.
Yeah,
you put it on the chat line, the link.
No, you got to go to my Facebook page. But
no,
I could.
No.
There may be a link. Bert, you would have downloaded it. Well, it should be a link. I don't know if I can get the link right this moment. Where is that? There's the Facebook page.
Is it the lyrics?
No, I can get it. It's scroll down. Scroll down to May Brussels. There's a lot of people putting stuff on there.
I think it's a bit challenging listening to it.
Oh, yeah, it's irritating. But the band goes away.
It's the content, obviously, is rather like Ion or something. It's quite transformative in some way, which we it makes me wonder how much other people's words, like yours, actually make us change, even though we don't realize by hearing it we are changing.
Bob, I have the link.
Yeah.
I can send it to the Goober Snatcher.
Chat, yes.
Well, I just got the link. I'll put in. I can be faster.
Okay.
We'll
Since
have
I
a
went
race,
and found it.
compete.
Yeah. Let's put it. I'm just going to say important. You can type your own headline, Bert. And mine is going to be in there.
Pay attention.
I beat him.
Wow.
Bert, nowhere near. Bert didn't even. Bert comes in 1 second. 5 seconds later, Bert came in. I beat him by 5 seconds.
It was the same without you there. It was like not having Ian and not having Bert.
Right, right. Look at Sean. She's laughing her head off. That would be 8 minutes ago. We don't know what Sean was laughing at. We don't know what James was laughing at. Long time ago. Okay, so let's that transcript summarizes Mae Brussels' main point about Fritz Kramer. It's really important. She lays it out really good.
Mae Brussels?
Scanning
She
through
was
it,
an
really
independent
big.
journalist.
Oh, okay, thank you.
What'd you say, Bert?
I said just scanning through it. When I got posted the link, I'm like, wow, I got to read this. It's really big.
Yeah, it's the essence of Mae Brussels' argument. Going from the Nazis from World War II, Fritz Kramer, and then Fritz Kramer running the Pentagon for 30 or 40 years. It's pretty profound. So, and Peter Drucker, McLuhan's friend, the Mr. Corporate Management Consultant, he writes the essay. The man who invented Henry Kissinger, Drucker brought Kramer to America because they both
From where?
grew up or were in Frankfurt. And Kramer was a rich person. Drucker was a rich person. But anyways, let's just see where this goes. We're into Malvinas.
They blew they temporarily stalled the Bolsheviks' plan, but the Bolsheviks had to come back with a coup in June '82, and they pulled it off. Can you believe it? They forced Haig to resign on June 25th, and Peter said it had to happen by June 27th. He was right again. But who would believe it? So we hear what Mae Brussels has to say. Mae Brussels does a tape in the June 15-16 period of 1982, and that tape names 7 deaths that occurred during that week. So I think we can use that as some kind of indication of a coup that took place just before June 25th, 82. Because you had Raymond Donovan, the Secretary of Labor, the chief witness against him, died, okay? The pistol that was used for May McAgden to shoot the Pope was found that week, okay, the guy who sold it. And then there were a few other incidents which it would take too much time to explain, but the point is there was a ballet of 7 incidents that Mae Brussels elucidated that happened in the middle of June. So obviously something was happening. You and I weren't being killed, but the guys who control us were being killed. So that kind of battle will eventually get to us, right? It'll eventually come down to us. But at the point they're fighting among themselves like dinosaurs. Okay, that is June 82, the battle. The first strike in September 82 didn't happen. So what did they have to do? They had to bust John DeLorean on October 18, 1982. John DeLorean is a member of the old Rockefeller cartel. He was paid $25,000 by J.P. de Crace, a Vatican Knight of Malta, the head of the American Knights of Malta. He was paid that monthly, and then later given a huge amount of money and secret telex and various systems for spies and mercenaries in South America. Now this just came out. This is in a new book by an old associate crony of DeLorean called Hard Drive by Years with John DeLorean. You can buy it today at any store. It just came out, and it shows you on page 105 to 106 the role of John DeLorean in intelligence work, but obviously the Rockefeller cartel.
I'm in a nightclub quoting page numbers.
Amazing. Out in the open.
Oh dear.
The guys that control us are getting killed.
That's right. The guys who control us are killing each other. That means they're going to come for us someday. Yes, that's a modern Jeremiad. You call that a Jeremiad, IAD. And it's It's like the guy who knew too much. Zappa had a picture of himself saying, "The man who knew too much. I've just been killed by the government." I'm the man who knew too much. All the key events of the 20th century, and I showed up one night in one room and laid it all out. And it disappeared.
Bob, did anyone come up to you after you did this and said anything to you like that was amazing, or they just were
nobody?
Numb?
One guy came up and shook my hand. One fucking guy. Nobody knew what to do.
Wow.
One guy. I think he knew me on the radio. He says, I heard you on the radio and saying that you'd be here, and I came out, and I said, "Yep." I didn't tell him it wasn't me. He had the wrong guy, but he appreciated it. Yes, I had very little response back then. Well, I wasn't on the radio yet. That's the point.
Yeah, but I mean, just if I was in the crowd and hearing that, I'm like, this guy must know something because he's pulling this off top of his head. He can't be making it up. He can't be making this up.
I knew it so well. I was improvising on it.
Yeah.
I could have done different directions.
Wow.
But if you read that May Brussels article, you'll see the historical facts. Then you'll see what this fits into.
But, I mean, I'm not surprised people were afraid to get involved because they, rather like you with Dr. Peter Peter, you were warned to be cautious because it was dangerous.
Yeah.
And people may have felt the same, given especially because the Internet wasn't, there wasn't the Internet availability for people to find out facts unless they actually knew somebody. They couldn't really check on things then. Now,
that's right.
We're much luckier. We've got, while we have the chance, we can look up anything because it isn't banned, unlike the Chinese. I think people, would be apprehensive. Everybody was tied into their, what Ian calls their little boxes. With the kind of routine. You had escaped that, Bob, by
I was escaped from the lunatic asylum.
going to the professors and really leading the life of a man of leisure. And sort of people who went on the grand tours in the old days. To Italy and things. You were doing the equivalent in America.
That's right.
And so you didn't really fit into any particular camp.
That's right.
Really. So you were out of it, really. So you could afford to be yourself. And especially if you've got a lot of Aquarius or Uranus, you can take turns. But people, when you're part of a collective or part of an office or something like that, you have to be cautious.
That's right.
You could lose your income and everything if you aren't careful.
Yeah. Well, I've always said that the difference between you and me is that you got a job and I don't, and I'm not beholden to anybody.
Yes, that is completely different.
Bob doesn't care about his reputation.
No reputation.
Yeah, you're hearing a person. It's a good syndrome. A person who's actually reading the newspapers, paying attention to the news. This is just like over a 12-month period. This is what happens to his mind, just by following the connections. Actually, I didn't even work at that. May Russell did all the work. I just noted it, memorized it.
You read 25 hours of Phil Schneider and Al Seebeck, and you'll soon realize there's a very different America to what's presented on the surface. It's the same in every country. But that's why it's so reassuring to have Ion give his views on, or overview, I should say, on actually what more of a more accurate, of a perfect perspective, I guess, of what actually is happening, and so that we needn't, we can get happy about it and not fret about it.
Right. Well, shall we bounce off Chad's sane discourse with more mania? I hear more mania.
Yes. Bring it on.
Bring it on.
Don't encourage him.
No, bring it on.
Encourage me.
God.
Just put earplugs on. Just put earplugs on.
Get your camera out.
Okay, I'm interested myself where this leads. I'm into 1982, and the Battle of His Harvest Moon is in September. I seem to have bypassed it. I'm not sure.
Hamburger didn't get busted yet.
No, but...
Right? Okay. That is October 82. Now we come to March 23rd, 1983. Space for this part. You're welcome to return when you're given instructions, okay? Okay. This is an important...
I'm telling the band members they're welcome to return when they're given the appropriate instructions.
So I just want to have Jack give me a bass solo here, because this is about the March 23rd, 1983 address by Ronald Reagan to the people.
Now, I'm mentioning Jack, the bass solo. Jack is the only guy of that band on my Facebook. He is here with me today. You know what I mean?
Wow.
I think he might know a bit about Ion.
That's fantastic.
Well done, Jack.
Yeah, Jack, he's the one who got Bob Marshall on there. And then I showed up, and then Jack and I became friends, and when I left Toronto, he became a friend of Nelson Thal, but he says Nelson Thal ripped him off, so he doesn't care about Nelson anymore. And then we got back in touch, and just lately he said he'd like to have a phone call with me, so I'll maybe do that this week. But that's the bass player. He stayed on stage with me. The rest wandered off, but Jack stayed there. So here it is, 30-something years later, and Jack is right there on my Facebook yesterday. 30 years later, this guy who's playing bass for me.
What a timing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Of the world, electric simultaneity, satellite conditions, electric corporate mixed media. He told us that he was going Star Wars. Now, why would he go Star Wars? Because they lost the first nuke.
Okay, so what I'm talking about here, this is Reagan's famous Star Wars speech, March 23rd, 1983. So I'm explaining why Reagan had to do that. It would be within the Rockefeller-Bolshevik battle. Now, I don't know where this is. Can't see the numbering, so I can't tell.
Right,
I'm going to have to break off now. I'm sorry. I'll catch this later on the playback. I'm sorry. I've got to take the dog. Thank you.
Well, we enjoyed your commentary.
Thanks, Bob.
Bye, Charles.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Charles.
Bye.
Take care, Charles.
Thank you.
And I expect a long letter review by Wednesday. A report, a review.
Mercy.
What? Mercy? What'd she say? Mercy.
Yeah.
Mercy. She can't stop herself. She sends me a report every week, ending with a poem. Okay, so I'm talking about Star Wars.
Dr. Beater. But the problem was they needed to stall it because they blew it in September 82. So I mentioned Fritz Kramer. Fritz Kramer's associate, Daniel Graham, who heads the Institute for Strategic...
Now, I'm talking about Fritz Kramer here, November 28th or something, 1985. 2 months later, I have an interview with Fritz Kramer at Larry's Hideaway, which I played last week. Right? I interviewed Fritz Kramer last week. That's the second gig with the band, Tutti Friend Tutti, Rosie Fenton.
You also mentioned September 82.
Yeah, I for back there, I think, but I don't think I give details unless I do it later.
No.
It's strategic trade. That means, you have to have a certain security number or some kind of little classification to trade with them, to trade huge commodities. All right? Institute for Strategic Trade. Fritz Kramer works with Daniel Graham, who's the front man for the Institute for Strategic Trade. Who was Fritz Kramer? He was Kissinger's mentor. He worked for Hitler at the Battle of Fowley. This is coming out. It's true. I mean, it's the same guy from Hitler's regime 40 years later. But he isn't too prominent in 1983, so they put Daniel Graham up front. Daniel Graham orders Edward Teller to make a speech. We're going Star Wars, even though Dr. Peter pointed out that we lost the Battle of Harvest Moon 6 years before in 1977. But it's all the joke. Have you heard the latest? No, it isn't out yet. Okay, so we know what's coming, but it's a matter of programming us. So they're going to get us ready through the 80s with Star Wars. So Daniel Graham, he comes to Toronto, he travels all over the world promoting Star Wars. That's in March 83. Unfortunately, his major associate on the board of Western Goals, the chief of Western Goals, was Larry McDonald. And you know what Larry did? He got caught. He got caught in January 1983 because some ACLU plaintiffs, 131, sued the Western Goals because they were using Los Angeles Police Department computers for collecting the files on all kinds of people, actually 2 million in the Los Angeles area, but they were using them, these files for all police departments all over America, probably here in Canada. The point is that they sued, so Larry McDonald was going to be subpoenaed. This was covered up from January till May 1983. In May, it was all over, May 1983, it was all over the LA papers, and May Russell was doing some heavy coordinating and collating of information because Larry McDonald went back to the shooting of Larry Flint, he went back to the shooting of Robert Kennedy, and the other guy, the guy with the different colored skin. But remember what Beeford said? What did he say? He said, we're all colored or we wouldn't be able to see each other, right? So, ignore the first reference there. But anyway, we're talking about Martin King. Martin King, he was shot by this Alabama crew, which Larry McDonald represented, DeKalb County, which is also the county Mark David Chapman came out of. Why? Why did John Hinckley go to the same refugee camp in the mid-70s as Mark David Chapman? But back to Larry McDonald. So Larry, in May, it's being covered up in the LA newspapers. It's being covered there, but not in any other major media. But what happened in August, the middle of August 1983, the Washington Post had the gall to report. Check, that's enough. Okay? Want to take a break? Okay.
You're dismissed, Jack.
Yeah, I said, that's enough, Jack. You want to take a break? I'm enjoying the fact I can be heard. I don't have to strain my voice. I said, fuck, we don't even need a bass. Get rid of that. Hey, I'm going to go solo here. A cappella. No, Lenny Bruce never did that. He never told the jazz musician to get off stage. Well, none of the beatniks ever did that. This is new. This is a punk beatnik. Bob Dobbs, punk beatnik.
Yeah.
Mean beatnik. That's pretty cute.
This is important. The bass solo set, beautiful bass solo there. He set the mood, right, for this important connection. This is an international connection. This is an international. Yeah, Jack, he wants a vote. Did you like his stuff better or mine? That's Jack. And how many?
Say yes or no.
I'm actually taking a vote in the audience of 25 people about whether they want Jack on or not.
Conspiracy. So here's what happened in August 18th, 1983. This is very important. Larry McDonald gets subpoenaed by the judge in Los Angeles. Okay, the LA Police Department's been holding files on 2 million LA citizens since the 1950s. Larry McDonald, the head of the Western Goals Board. On that board was Louise Reese and John Reese. Louise Reese was the secretary for Joe McCarthy back in the 50s. Okay, so they were keeping those files in the McCarthy era for, how many years is that? Work it out. 30, no. 50, 45? No, 32. Which calendar are you using? So, 100, right? But don't forget to live 200 years every 12 months at the speed of light.
I mean, the famous Canadian, he had the Order of Canada. He pointed this out, Marshall McLuhan, in 1970 in Business Week. So really, it's, geez, that's 4,000 years ago, right? In 1955, and he was kicked off TV in 54. So here is this gang. They were holding these McCarthy files for 30 years. The problem is they got caught in 1972 and were ordered to get rid of them. They said they did. Then the citizens of L.A. found out they didn't get rid of them and told them to do it again in 1975. But they didn't get rid of them. They just told John Reese and Larry Donald to put it in their Western Goals computer. Imagine that. What that? Okay. Deb? Remember Zappa's video, Deb Room Special? This is the Deb Room Special.
I'm addressing my lawyer, Deb Aaron, and I'm punting on her name because Zappa just put out a video called the Dub Room Special, so I'm calling her Dub. There, that's a little audience interaction there with Deb Aaron.
Here's Larry McDonald. On his board is Edward Teller and Daniel Graham, and they've just written a speech to promote Ronald Reagan's Star Wars plan. This goes directly into the White House. Now, if Larry McDonald gets subpoenaed and he's keeping his McCarthy files, what is going to happen to Ronnie, right? If he's got another election come up, he's going to go for 8 years. He's the Roosevelt of the 80s, right? So it had to be stopped. A little bit of finagling in the summer 80s really involved Kitchener when they had to kill Vicki Morgan. That was part of the deal. Remember when Vicki Morgan died, the mistress of Vesco and Reagan's best friend, the Bloomfields? Remember Alfred Bloomfield? Well, Alfred Bloomfield and his wife were caught with a scandal because Vicki Morgan had been seeing Albert and being paid on the side. So they killed her, okay, and Skolnick, Chairman Skolnick talked about this on his tape, and the Secret Service agents visited him in January 85 because he talked about it, broadcast on his phone radio system. And so he took them outside and explained in his old jalopy to these Secret Service agents who had this death threat for him. He told them, you guys wrote it, and he gave them a seminar for half an hour on what the history of the Secret Service was and treasonous activities within America. That's guts, okay? Meanwhile, all his buddies are getting killed, but Sherman, who's in a wheelchair, just telling them where to go. So they didn't fool him with their phony letter that he was going to suffer a death threat because he knew he wrote it. So he kept blabbing on Vicki Morgan. So then that was in July 83. So what happens in September 83? Larry McDonald takes a plane ride, right? You remember where he went? Okay, he went there and they killed him, right? They blew up the plane. So who blew up the plane, Russia or the United States? Well, Nate Russell said the United States. 2 years later, Nation magazine is saying, yes, there's evidence in that area. But May had the gall to say it 2 years ago, as soon as it happened. And she knew why, because she knew the significance of Larry McDonald. He had to be killed. He really had to be killed, because any connection through him to the White House blows the Star Wars program. Okay? So what happened? Larry Flint decides to protest this action. He doesn't believe the Russians shot it, or he doesn't think we should be hysterical. So, Russell hears about this ad in the New York Times, and she goes down and introduces herself and explains who shot him. He knew who shot him, Joseph Franklin. But he didn't know anybody else knew. So he was so impressed with Mae Russell, he gave her a magazine. The magazine came out November 22nd. By November 12th, Gordon Novel, Mitchell Bell, and G. Gordon Liddy were in Larry Flint's house working him over. And they raped his daughter. Isn't that incredible? Okay. Meanwhile, Larry McDonald was dead. And what happens after Larry McDonald dies? You think of Beater's prediction. Okay, the September 82 first strike didn't happen, but he said in the late 1983 the war hysteria would be built up again. So what happens? They shoot down the KAL-007. 2 weeks later, let's say South Korean cabinet, okay? South Korean cabinet, since I'm improvising, we'll say the South Korean cabinet, was blown up in Burma, okay? And a lot of people got mad, but this caused a little tension between North and South Korea because they blame North Korea. That makes another little hot spot. And then in the middle of October, they blow up the Marine barracks, which Beater predicted I read his summary last week. He predicted that in September 82, when the Marines were brought back in due to the massacre of the Lebanese peasants in those areas, or the Palestinian refugees. Remember that, when they blew them away in September 17th, the day of the first strike? That was to set up for another reason to bring the Marines back. Beater said they're going to get killed. Well, they killed 222 of them, I think, in October 23rd, 1983. And then 2 days later, to distract from that, they invade Grenada. Now, a lot of people call me up and say, hey, Bob, it looks pretty frightening. Why is this crazy activity going on? Is somebody planning? Is somebody going to start something? I certainly thought they would. I certainly thought there was 4 incidents like that in 6 weeks, and meanwhile Larry Flint is running for president using Mae Brussel as speechwriter. That's trouble. That's a lot of trouble. But amazingly, in February '84, the Russians brought in their Cosmospheres and zapped the area over Israel and stopped the movement toward another nuclear strike. Okay? Why? I thought I explained that with the Nugan-Hand Bank. Remember Frank Nugan and Michael Hand? They were killed because they botched the January 1980 first strike. So there's going to be bodies showing up all the time. Remember Bronfman's girlfriend went out of the window over here in Hazelton Lanes, right? Remember that one? Nobody interviewed him. Nobody asked him. I wasn't on CKLN then, so I couldn't get an interview with him. But we'll try to in the future if you keep listening. We're going to get interviews with everybody because it's the international connection, not local.
Hey, there's a prediction. Through ION, we've interviewed everybody.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought, Bob.
Yeah, we have access to everybody.
Yeah.
Are you with me? Is you still following this? You getting it? This is very intense period with Hustler Larry Flint putting out the magazine called The Rebel. He's running for president. Now watch, he's going to get arrested. Larry Flint.
Politics, think globally, act locally. This is the international perspective, okay? And you can't get away with what I'm doing, and you're going to get killed. So I'm going to be killed in 10 minutes, right? But who cares? Because I remember what Captain Beaver said. I'm not even here. I just hang around for my friends. Okay?
Now, if you notice, I've said this stuff. That's all I've ever said on Payday to James Martinez Cash Flow. It's the same shit. I keep saying the same basic points. Well, maybe some new stuff to add, but look at that. You've heard that before. I'm not really here hanging around for my friends. I've said that 100 times, right? So,
yeah.
Actually, what I'm saying here is the map, the grid for all the stuff I will say once I get access to the radio. What am I, broken record? Wait a minute. I don't hear anybody. Maybe there's people have been blocked.
Not a broken record, but a consistent message, Bob.
Yes, consistent. What else? Unknown.
No, I was just laying down.
No laying down. Get back up. At attention. Oh, that's Bert. Bert's been cut out.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bert.
Yes.
Sorry, Bert.
Sorry, Bob.
Anything you would have said?
Cut out.
Yeah, would you
have
said
anything?
anything?
This is fantastic. This is fantastic.
You like
it? Yeah.
They say in history... Yeah, go ahead.
I was paying attention to the news in the 82 and 83, so when you were saying those buzz points, I remember.
You remember them? Yeah.
Yes.
You'll find... I remember some kid telling me he took history in college. This is incredible. You study like 6 weeks of some period every day, every detail over 6 weeks. Maybe something in Louis XIV's court or something. So this is what I'm presenting in detail. You could say 1980 to 85, with especially emphasis on 82 and 83. So what happens next?
Oh. That's Ed Lauder out there. Ed Lauder from Los Angeles. You know Ed Lauder? He goes around being a tough guy. He's right out in the audience. He worked for Larry Flint. Now he's trying to promote me. He wants me to make a movie to promote myself. I mean, obviously he's working for the LAPD because I got to keep a low profile, right? I got to keep a low profile. I'll get in business.
Obviously, he's working for LAPD.
Yeah, and I said I was going to be dead in 10 minutes. That's pretty good. I'm trying to get the audience paranoid. I'm trying to really get them worked up. I'm going to be killed in 10 minutes. Not the guy wants to make a movie of me, but I got to have it. All right. What'd you say, Roxy? Die?
So I give you 15 minutes to say yes or no.
Oh, we can't make it out. You're lying down. You're not near your phone. We don't know what you're saying. Okay.
So you say you were going to die in 10 minutes, and I said no. You had 15 minutes to decide yes or no.
15 seconds.
That was my joke.
All right.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, 15 seconds. Okay, I decide to live, I guess. Here we go.
Up tonight. You people don't count because you all know, right? You've been listening to the electrified voice. That's right, you know. So in February 84, Reagan says on February 7th, this is true, he says, no, we're not pulling out the Marines. On February 8th, he says, yeah, we're pulling out the Marines. Because in that 24-hour period, the Cosmospheres knocked out the first strike attempt that had been heated up through September to December 1983. Okay, we have the election. That's a whitewash. We don't have to worry about what happened there. That was just a distraction, a red herring to get us ready for the Mengele hoax. Remember that? We're into 1985 now. Now, what's interesting about the Mengele hoax is it was triggered by a letter to Manfred Roeder. Manfred Roeder runs the neo-Nazi network in Germany, and he was accused of bombing Bologna, Italy, which involved Licio Gelli and the P2 and the Masonic Lodge, which Henry Kissinger was a member of, the whole gang around Paul Marcinkus, the Vatican Archbishop. Now, remember in 1982, when a lot of those guys died during the coup, one of the guys who died was Roberto Calvi. Roberto Calvi was found hung on Blackfriars Bridge. And anybody who reads the Executive Intelligence Review knows that the Blackfriars Bridge refers to the Order of the Black Friars. That's the secret society. That's the English branch of the P2. Okay, so it's symbolic. Who are they communicating to you? Not me and you and I. When they kill Calvi on that bridge, they hang him there. They're not communicating to us. They're communicating within themselves, the different factions. They communicate via the media too. Okay, but it's code. So Calvi died in 82. Archbishop Paul Marcinkus from Cicero, Illinois, the same place that Al Capone came out of. And he's old enough to work with Al Capone, just like Jack Ruby did. Jack Ruby was a runner for Al Capone. Yeah, the Evergreens. You ever heard of the Evergreens? The medium, the guy who goes in the trance and 6,000 to 7,000 entities are in his head. It's incredible. And he goes, it is seen that, yes, Fritz Kramer, we have this on tape. We just did it on November 19th. We had the real summit meeting. The Reagan-Gorbachev meeting was a little camouflage microcosm of our macrocosm with the Evergreens. And we asked him if Fritz...
Yeah, that's James Kidney, who becomes the head of the Watchers in Fringe in the audience. And the week before November 19th, 1985, I had a session with the Evergreens with Deb Aaron, our lawyer, and James Kidney, and that was the first time I talked to the Evergreens in 5 years. I had a 5-year gap of waiting to see if their predictions from 1980 came true. And they were pretty good. Mae Brussel was right on the button. So here I am reconnecting with the Evergreens after a 5-year break, and then I never stop at that point. So this is the beginning of me really using the Evergreens. And I just used them the week before, the day that Reagan and Gorbachev met in Iceland, I think. And it may have been the day that Reagan said, look out, we got to worry about the aliens coming. We got to get our shit together. So that's significant there.
Kramer was the Nazi Fritz Kramer, and he said yes. Can you believe that? He said yes. All 6,000 of them agreed with him. 6,000 entities from another zone. They say it's the Booties Galaxy, which is a national system. That's where they're from. They agreed with Mae Brussel, that Fritz Kramer, and Mae can't get any air coverage on that matter. So Manfred Roeder, who's working with the P2 people, he gets a letter in, let's say, March 85. Okay, write that down. We'll put it on CKLN next Thursday. Okay, boys, I don't really like this one. The connection between Manfred Roeder and Ernst Gundel. Now, this is significant because they're finding out that Chinese people spy in Toronto at the Malton Airport. So why wouldn't other networks be here, besides the Sikhs, the terrorism that we exposed? Did you know that the RCMP heard our interview with the EIR on October 17th, and 2 weeks later busted the Sikhs in Vancouver? And we were told that they heard our interview and it gave them a direction on how to bust them. They let them go, so I think they just called them in and told them, look, you're being exposed in Toronto, do some little diversionary activities, okay, go back home to Vancouver. But anyways, we put a little pressure, right? Not me, the Executive Intelligence Review, but at least CKLN put it on the air, which is to their credit, don't you think? Don't you think it's great that the CKLN puts this stuff out?
their manager, the station manager, told me that we'll put this stuff out until we get a bomb threat. Okay? And we've been doing it over a year, we haven't got a bomb threat yet. So obviously, not many people listen to CKLN. But it's a fantastic station, because I think people listen to CKLN, but when International Connection is on, if you phone them, if you phone somebody who, when he picks up the phone, you can hear International Connection in the background, he'll change his name. He'll deny that that's his phone. That's true. Yeah, that's right. It's silly information, and which will be developed at our next gig at Larry's Hideaway, why this information is silly. But like I said, it takes volumes to explain why Captain Beefheart said, what did he say? I know her, so it doesn't mean somebody. There's one person back there I don't know. He's in black. One of those men in black right there behind Andy. What do you say? He says the same thing. He's right. He said the same thing as her. There are 40 people in the world. Hamburgers? Yeah. And 5 of them are hamburgers. Okay. Now, in a situation where the word makes the market, and we're all together in a little global membrane, I've gone over this 100 times, it's going to be mentioned on our series on the phone, which is coming up on CKLN. We'll explain why there's no time and space. And Walter Wriston was on Wall Street Week last Friday night, and he said there's no time and space. He's talking like a psychic. He's talking like an Aquarian. He's the top banker responsible for all the devastating changes in the United States banking system over the last 15 years. He's saying there's no time and space. So Dr. Beater doesn't seem so far out because he worked with those guys. He set up the Export-Import Bank in the 1960s. So Manfred Roeder gets a letter from Paraguay saying, Uncle is dead, died off the beaches of Brazil. Or died on the beaches? Yeah, off the beaches. Off, right, in the water. So off the beaches of Brazil, he died. Okay, so the authorities notice this letter goes to Manfred Roeder, who's in jail for blowing up people all through the early 80s. And he's reading and distributing literature based on the propaganda function of Werner Naumann, who was assigned to be Joseph Goebbels' successor in 1945. Werner Naumann sets up all these newspapers, and General Edwin Walker phones one of his newspapers on November 23rd, 1963, and says Lee Harvey Oswald was a communist. Okay? And Werner Naumann is meanwhile setting up people like Hoffman and the man I just mentioned. Remember him? Began with Manfred Roeder. That's right. So Manfred Roeder, this triggers off the German police to investigate why Manfred Roeder's getting a letter from Paraguay talking about Uncle. They know who Uncle is. So what it means is that we've got to make Joseph Mengele appear dead because Mae Brussel has connected the Fritz Kramer Ernst Zundel Institute of Historical Review in Torrance, California, who were notorious anti-Semites, which doctors predicted that there would be an increase in Hitler kind of propaganda against the Jewish faction, which is unfortunately a dupe of the K-Czar Bolshevik faction that runs the Pentagon, apparently. But Manfred Roeder and Zundel are distributing his literature saying, and Keekster too, and Beater said that these people would get a lot of airplay, and they did, right? Right after Mengele. You notice when Zundel was in trial in Toronto, right in the middle of the time, Weasel pulls out a little document saying, hey, Joseph Mengele was in Canada in 1962, 1 year before the Kennedy assassination, making a deal. I mean, he was part of the Kennedy assassination, so, and the Torba document says Major Bloomfield in Montreal was part of the assassination. So maybe that was part of the deal. Mengele could get into Canada if he cooperated with the assassination. But this is all speculation. This is speculation, right? I mean, this tape might be broadcast. The German police then contact Mengele's family, and they decide to say, yes, he died. So Mrs. Boser says, we got her bones, here they are. She wouldn't let them open the coffin because she was weeping. She was weeping so much, she considered it an insult. Meanwhile, Fritz Kramer and an Associated Press photographer are flying quickly to Zurich to give money to Mengele's attorney, which Mae Brussel smoked out because several people were following him and told Mae who he was, Fritz Steinacker. This is all happening in 85. Reagan just got in for his second term. And they're bringing out the Mengele hoax. And why are they exposing? Why is Mengele being exposed? And why are the Jewish conspiracy being exposed at the same time? Why? Is it a retrieval of the 40s because we've exhausted all cultural content? Pretty abstract. You know, my associate Tom Ridge likes to get into the abstract stuff on the show, but I try to avoid it because I'm a technician. But secretly I think about those abstract things. I can speculate with the best of them. I mean, I had David E. Wooster on the show today, and he's talking about the formula that was triggered off on September 5th, 1969, the psychic formula that allowed all former hierarchical systems to control people had secretly been switched. And that Pope and don't know this, and they're running around, going to take, if you look at my chart, they're part of the second coming. They're coming in, and they're going to create the disease and offer the cure. So, not in the band, you know. So, I mean, Andy, he's a great singer, but he can only sing for about an hour, and then he's got to take a break. So they hired me to fill in the gap because we don't like dead air in Toronto, right? I mean, Frank Zappa says when he plays a gig here, he says the audience, when they watch him in the garden, they like watching him as if he's on TV. Is that because Toronto is influenced by McLuhan's media emphasis? Or Marshall was just a figure for the fact there was a media emphasis here? I'm just asking that rhetorically. Who? Monitor mania. That's very good. You mean like we have to keep track of what the content of the media is constantly? Because we're living 200 years every 12 months, and we all want to live our lives to the fullest, but it requires constant monitoring of the content of the media. Right? It's an addictive process. The problem is there's no pattern recognition offered on the content. But I'm trying to offer that through these sources. And the pattern recognition involves, in 1985, the Mengele hoax. Wiesenthal, a prominent Zionist, says Mengele is dead right away. But the Israeli government says he isn't. But the point is that Manfred Roeder got a letter that was sent to him with these implications of Mengele that was meant for the police to see so that they could then say, yes, it's time to say that Mengele died in 1979. Hey! They are the death squad! Oh, I knew it!
Okay, you hear the bass starting up, the band's come back on, they're going to kick me off. And I scream out, they are the death squad. The band is the death squad. You can hear the bass. Boop, 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 boop. It decided to do it. Anybody else digging this? Everybody here? Everybody listening?
Yep. I'm digging.
Yep. Roxy fell asleep. No, didn't fall asleep. Good. Okay, we're coming up to the punchline. So, the band's sneaking back on. I go paranoid and think they're the death squad.
Skolnick said he knew a guy named Jack.
So, that singer, he leaves Toronto. You know where he goes? He goes to Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. He goes to Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Of all places in Canada he could go to, he goes to the place that I'd been at 20 years before. Well, 10, 15 years before. But he ends up in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. That was uncanny. I think his girlfriend was from there or something, but he's still there as far as we know. 30 years later. Andy was his name. So, that's my, the first half of my club life. No, 1/3. I did that, and then I knew about Larry's Hideaway. I mentioned it. I said, coming up, Larry's Hideaway. That's January 22nd or so. And then I did the big club El Macombo in March 86, and that got videotaped. I don't know where that is. Might be somewhere. Dave Neufeld videotaped it. And that was the end of my nightclub life, I think. That was it. And then I went on the radio. Then I surfaced. And Bob Marshall was fired from CKLN. Bob Marshall.
Great warm-up.
Yep.
Great warm-up for radio.
Yes, I was getting ready to say all those things 100 times. Even heard the global membrane. People didn't know McLuhan used the phrase global membrane back then. I said it.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, so are we ready to do part 2 of our Zappa extravaganza? Really? What do we do?
Ionic sessions?
We can't make out what you're saying.
Ionic sessions?
Ionic sessions? What are they? We don't have any of those.
Ion sessions.
Oh, no, I don't. I did not have any session with Ion this week.
Wow.
So I have nothing to play. We're into it's almost like I'm playing this intense tape about an intense period in the early 80s. It's resonant with the intense period we're in right now. Right here, without Ion.
Yeah.
Yep. The band, you dismissed the band, Bob.
I did, and then they dismissed me. They just came back on. Bye. And I just said, just before that, I said, there's Andy in the audience. I was pointing out Andy, the singer. And then 2 minutes later, they're kicking me off the stage. I guess I broke club protocols by pointing out the band member in the audience. I had to be removed.
I sent you a video. I sent you another video now.
All right. That's what we need.
It's only 2 minutes.
Okay.
Joe and Jett.
I'm going to get it. This would be...
this is for our singing.
Joan Jett?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, about having a bad reputation. Okay. Here we go. Sort of an odd thing. Where do you click on it? Maybe just click on this. Is that a song, a favorite of yours from that period? You know that song?
No, but it's like you have been working on getting a bad reputation.
Yeah.
You have been really doing that.
And look, she says my point. She goes, and I don't give a damn about my reputation. The world's in trouble. There's no communication. She's talking about a post-information society. And anybody can say what they want to say because words are obsolete. It never gets better anyway, so why should I care about a bad reputation? But isn't that, the world's in trouble, there's no communication. Interesting. Now, she wouldn't mean it in terms of matching.
It's coming to an end, so who cares about your career?
So, I'm sure that influenced you. You heard that when you were 19 years old or 16 years old, and then that made you a nightclub musician. Admit it. How would you know this song? Did you just Google bad reputation and it came up?
No, at the beginning we did something and I reminded somehow this song, like, I don't hear that reputation.
You remembered it. You knew it. You knew the song.
Yes, but I forgot it was I don't give a damn about my reputation.
I see, yeah. Right.
Yes, because I remember why. Because our friend Rosa didn't show up.
Where?
Yes. Today.
Our friend Rosa?
Russo.
Oh, Russo, yes. Yes, Greg Russo. Yes. Well, I'm glad you listened to all that. That is an important rant. That's certainly, nobody in the world could say that back then in 1985, what I said. See, that's how I drew everyone's attention. They go, listen to this guy. Nobody says that. That guy's original. He's ripping off every other news source, but it's put together in a new way. Yes? Early years.
And Iron's been trying to recapture that moment ever since with all his rants.
Yeah. He's trying to do me. He gets all bottled up and sitting at ease. He ends up just talking about time and space canceling each other out.
No, but
making pronouns.
If you didn't have the real hidden ground, maybe you will be like Alex Jones now, like shouting like that all the time.
Wait, have you guys? You're saying maybe I would be? What are you saying? Maybe I.
Yes, if you didn't have iron.
Oh yes, I'd be like that. Right, I'd be like that.
That's not a possibility. That's not.
Yeah. Okay, you just said something.
The only difference is Alex Jones isn't funny.
Right. Well, he believes it.
Yeah.
He believes it. I didn't. Well, I kind of believed it, but I wasn't dependent on what I said. My life didn't depend on that pattern. I let you people work out the why.
No. Me.
Right. Like Zappa, when the pressure was on him in 1968, he was interviewed in Newsweek magazine, and he was kind of like a cultural leader, and people were looking to him for answers like they did with Dylan. And Zappa just said, well, I'm just presenting questions. See, that's the big cop-out. You just say, I'm presenting questions. I'm just doing the why. It's up to you guys to figure out the answers. But then, out of the blue, the answer showed up. Who would have believed that? Who would believe? What's her name? Joan Jett saying it never changes. Nothing ever changes. Well, it did change, finally. You know, Joan Jett was part of the Runaways. What were they called? The Runaways?
Joan Jett and the Blackhearts.
No, that's then. She came out of the late 70s in Kim Fowley's group, the girl group. I think they were called the Runaways. Let's just look at that, because Kim Fowley was mentioned in that little article describing who was at the in the trivia of Greg Russell's book. Kim Fowley is mentioned. He was the top LA hipster when Zappa showed up, and he created the group, the Runaways. And Kim Fowley, let's just put that in, and he was Runaways, manager of the Runaways. Now, I just bought Kim Fowley's autobiography, but he died January 15th. He died January.
I was reading that.
You were what?
I was just reading that this morning.
You were?
No, you always say.
Yes, I was always just reading something. That's right. I'm always right there.
Got the book this morning.
Well, I figured that out. All that happens in a day resonates around an underlying order. I read about Kim Fowley, then 4 hours later you post Joan Jett. And I remember that's the band that Kim Fowley formed. And Kim Fowley was sort of a good friend of Zappa's.
You live ahead of yourself.
Beg your pardon?
You live ahead of yourself.
That's right. I live ahead of myself. So things are happening in the morning, they're going to show up in the evening. And I should get Kim Fowley's book. I'm tempted to go read the first page since he's been around now. Oh, look, he was born on Marsh McLuhan's birthday, July 21st, and he died in Captain Beefheart's birthday. He was somehow a Hollywood family, and he got into the rock and roll scene very early in the late 50s, and he formed a band called Alley Oop. Or they did a song called Alley Oop. Well, we'll just bring that up. Let's clarify that. Alley Oop. YouTube. Alley Oop. What were they called? Alley Oop. So he was the first baby boomer kid, or just before baby boom kid, who understood the LA scene and the underground. And he, so therefore he had walking around with a hit song in 1960. Here it is, the Hollywood Argyles.
Hallelujah.
Now look at
Yeah, this is like the special of the stupid background choirs.
Yes. Now listen, this song became a big hit. Oh, that's the next song. Well, that's another famous one of the same period. One-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater. But the
purple people eater is like a bob eater.
That's a Bobby. That's Bobby, isn't it? Purple people eater. It's me. But listen to this. That could be Ion, right? Purple people eater. This song was like beatnik culture that made it into AM top 40 radio. And it had a big hit. Kim Fowley did that. So they would call it a novelty song. So Kim Fowley made it in the novelty world like Zappa was trying to do a couple years later with his novelty songs. He couldn't get any of them really take off, but Kim Fowley did what Zappa was trying to redo. So we have here his biography. Kim Fowley, Lord of Garbage. Name of his book, Volume 1.
He doesn't care about his reputation. Yeah.
Yes. He did not care about his reputation. Did he write that song? I think so. I think he did Alley-Oop. I have to look up Hollywood Argyles. Let's see, is there anything on the Hollywood Argyles? Says, born in Los Angeles, he was the son of a character actor, Douglas Fowley, and actress Shelby Payne. His parents later divorced, and Shelby Payne was remarried to William Frimmel, son of composer Rudolph Frimmel. He attended University High School at the same time as singers Jan Berry and Dean Torrance, later of Jan and Dean fame, and Nancy Sinatra, Bruce Johnson, later of the Beach Boys, as well as actors Ryan O'Neal, James Brolin, and Sandra Dee. So those were his high school buddies. In 1957, he was hospitalized with polio, and on his release, became manager publicist for a local band, the Sleepwalkers, that included Johnson of the later Beach Boys, drummer Sandy Nelson, the famous drummer, kid drummer, and occasionally Phil Spector. So he knew Phil Spector, so he knew everybody of significance in the late 50s. He spent some time in the armed forces and, by his own account, worked in the sex industry in Los Angeles in the late 50s. In 1959, he began working in the music industry in various capacities for both Alan Freed, that's the famous rock and roll DJ that they got rid of around Payola setup, and Berry Gordy. So he knew the guy who started Motown. His first record as producer was Charged by the Renegades, a group comprising Johnson, Nelson, Nick Vinay, and Richard Paldelor. He promoted records for the duo Skip and Flip, including the number 11 hit Cherry Pie. During the early 1960s, Fowley was involved as co-producer, co-publisher with a string of successful records produced in Los Angeles. With Gary Paxton, he recorded the novelty song Alley-Oop, which reached number 1 on the charts in 1960 and was credited to the non-existent group, the Hollywood Argyles. So he's the first pop hoaxer. And, Zappa lists him as an influence in Freakout. In 1961, he co-produced the instrumental Like Long Hair, arranged by Paxton, which became a number 38 hit for Paul Revere and the Raiders. He wrote Nut Rocker for Bee Bumble and the Stingers, which became a number 1 hit in the UK in 62, and Talent scouted Papa Mau Mau, a number 48 hit for the Rivingtons. The following year, he produced Popsicles and Icicles by the Mermaids. I've played that, which reached number 3 in the charts in 1963, which was written by a pre-Bread, the band Bread, David Gates, then a session musician and songwriter who met Fowley while Kim was hitchhiking in Los Angeles. During the mid-50s, Fowley publicized consult singer P.J. Proby and relocated for a time in London, England. Fowley wrote the lyrics for the song Portobello Road, the B-side of Cat Stevens' first single, I Love My Dog. He produced a Them spin-off band by two ex-Them, that's Van Morrison, by two ex-Them members, brothers Pat and Jackie McCauley, who were only allowed to use the band name Other Them in the UK, but called themselves Them on the European continent. releasing an album called Them Belfast Gypsies, and a single, Let's Freak Out. Look at that. And a single, Let's Freak Out, under the name Freaks of Nature. An early incarnation of Slade known as the In-Betweens. Soft Machine, he worked with them. He produced Love Makes Sweet Music, their first single, and the Lancasters, which is where Zappa lived in high school, an instrumental rock group featuring a young Richie Blackmore, that's Purple. He worked with an up-and-coming band, the Farinas, and renamed them Family. So he was everywhere in the industry. Fowley worked on occasion as a recording artist in the 1960s, using albums such as Love is Alive and Well, issuing albums such as Love is Alive and Well. In 1965, he wrote and produced a song about the psychedelic experience, The Trip. He later was credited for Hype Phone on Frank Zappa's first album, Freak Out. Other singles by Fowley as a recording artist included Animal Man. During the song, he remarks, "It's too dirty, it'll be banned." During the song, he said, "It's too dirty, it'll be banned," from his popular 1968 album, Outrageous. All his efforts as a solo artist since 1970 have become cult items, both in reissue and bootleg formats. So he's a real, person behind the scenes for very early in the rock world. So the book says, note from the publisher, Kim Fowley is the last standing knight from the original Cool World Roundtable. He prefers to think of himself as the Lord of Garbage. This mind-mangling collage of his poetry and prose provides a wild ride into the early years of a musical mastermind and juvenile delinquent as he drives deep into the dark recesses of a life fraught with pain, fame, and mayhem. You already know the genius music, now know the genius man of letters. Thank you, Kim Fowley. And it's dedicated to Alan Freed, who understood my need to learn and be great, and to Gene Vincent, an early rocker, who showed me that being crippled was a plus and not a minus. Then he has a poem on the inside beginning. He says, "The Lord of Garbage is an unloved, unwanted child, born, torn, and shop-worn from embryo to crypt, from bassinet to bathtub. Let's hide this battered baby monster child from normalcy and decency, from help and happiness. Let's pretend KVF does not exist. Oh, let's pretend Kim Fowley does not exist." Dedications. Here's his dedications. Rock and roll is driven by revenge and sex. The revenge part is directed against mean family members, unfriendly friends, resentful school teachers, and neighborhood enemies who always thought you were a loser with no talent, no magic, no future. The sex part is all the boys and girls that your future rock and roll hero wanted to love that didn't know you were in the same room with them. They didn't even know you were alive. It was these missing links who drove me to the top of the charts time and time again. The revenge people never did acknowledge my vinyl victories. From 1939 to 1969, I did the whole ladder of success climb alone. No one was ever there. No one ever cared. Lord of Garbage is dedicated to the members of the biz, media, and audience who consumed my jukebox jungle creations during the first 30 years of my life. Lord of Garbage is also dedicated to Sarah, Snow, and Little Sex Fat, who 42 years before this book ends turned up in my terrible life to hold me tight on those dark, dangerous nights. Thank you, ladies. That's Sarah, Snow, and Little Sex Fat. Enjoy Lord of Garbage. Enjoy Lord of Garbage. It will tell you why I was born to make you cry. So, he's like a sex kid hustler, abandoned. The next, so does he have more poems? He has one more poem at the beginning. The Lord of Garbage is a magic kid, mini monster, to a movie colony. Look out for cops. While the old man shovels drugs down his body, he lives to drink. Not great, almost talented. He and the garbage man's mother aren't good enough to be great. Don't they know I am a future god? And in his introduction, he says, "This is a warning, not an intro to a book. This is a warning, not an introduction to a book. Lord of Garbage is the raving of a rock and roll madman. I wrote the prose part of the book during bladder cancer recall surgery hospital stays. My diet included morphine, IV drips, and bladder bags. No wife, no child, no friends. Just blood and thunder, puke, piss, scabs, teardrops. Death is my next long-term project. But before I slide, glide, or crawl out of this black and white gut-splattered life, I wanted to get my story down on slabs of parchment. So you folks know that a monster crept among you. So you folks know that a monster crept among you through the vinyl jungle and cinema graveyard of a dark and dangerous trance. Yes, I grunted out enough bile for a 3-volume set. 3, that's his books. 3 trilogy. Lord of Garbage is the first blood book in a 3-volume Sicko series. Kix Books, that's the publisher, chose to do it in these necessary installments because there's no way that you could have digested all of this wicked waste in one long vacuum gulp. Everything is done, turned in, finished. For your information, the poems were all written at the time that the prose happened. This indicates that I was ahead of my time. The outlaw king of America is not only a king of the creeps, I am the wizard of words. I am the king of slime. Read Lord of Garbage at your own peril. You are taking a risk. Enjoy this SOS from hell. Kim Fowley, autumn 2012, West Hollywood, California.
Bob, Michael's on mute.
Oh, sorry. Glad you guys are helping each other. Where is that? You sound like you're in the kitchen now, that far away, Roxy.
No, I'm
down the hallway.
Oh.
I get tired of sitting.
It's pissing, yes. There's Roxy in the heart of Rixdorf, the Bohemian Knights of Templar. Here, we're in there. We're in Rixdorf, and she's here, there, and in South Africa. We should let Nick have a fucking word. Fucking Nick. Sorry, Nick. You weren't qualified
Bob.
to be part of this. How you doing, Nick?
Well, I'm good, and you, Bob? How you doing?
Very nice, as you can tell. Did you enjoy the ride tonight?
I did, indeed. It was rather an interesting one for me.
Good.
Great.
Do you have anything to say about Zappa?
Well, I found it quite interesting how he had such an incredible influence on many, many other rock groups and pop groups through the years. So, yeah, I must say it was quite a large and steep learning curve for me. Because I must be honest, I wasn't a huge Zappa fan. I wasn't really much into that. That's my younger, tender age.
Yeah, that means you didn't know about him.
I don't know, but this sort of dug deep into somebody's life who, yeah, I must say, I think the Beatles probably made a major impression on my life because of our parents' lives. But, it wasn't a sort of a Zappa household, if you could call it that. But, so I found it really, really interesting how his cross-generational ways and the music, just the variation, with orchestral sort of maneuvers in the dark and all of the other things, and very eclectic too. There was a lot of stuff. I think his genre was a big influence on a lot of other musicians, which was really quite interesting. And so thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you very much to you and your team, your ensemble. It's certainly
my special ensemble.
Your special ensemble. It worked really. Yes, it's all over the world. Michael here and Roxy. She says she lives in Germany. It was wonderful.
Germany.
So thank you very, very much. Yeah.
You're welcome. And Kim Fowley, he goes on about himself as quite a devilish guy. Around 1971 or so, he was interviewed somewhere, and I read it, and he said he had screwed 4,000 girls by that time.
Nice.
So I think he was born in 1939. His birthday was July 21st, 1939. That was the day that Hitler invaded Poland. Well, let's just read the first part here. He goes, when you think of Kim Fowley, think of a child born in the black and white world of 1939. So he's a year older than Zappa. Between 1939 and 1957, I took in 18 years of a Charles Dickens type childhood. Dysfunctional parents, of course. Isn't that the way it should be? There has to be something wrong in order to be driven mad. I've always been a genius. I'm also an idiot savant with physical handicaps. I got polio, otherwise known as permanent paralysis, in 1944. It was more horrifying than it should have been. I'd been pawned off into a foster home 3 years earlier as a 2-year-old child. That was how life started for me in California, USA. Yeah, it's pretty bad. July 21st, 1939. That was the day that Hitler invaded Poland. Well, maybe he didn't, but he might have. That's an interesting play on time there, eh? Well, maybe he didn't, but he might have. Regardless, and more importantly, Kim Vincent Fowley. Was Zappa called Vincent? Frank Vincent Zappa? I think that's Zappa's middle name, too. Regardless, and more importantly, Kim Vincent Fowley, did show up, kicking and screaming, ejected at precisely 9:46 p.m. from the loins of debutante cum starlet Shelby Payne at St. Vincent's Hospital in Los Angeles. Shelby's first child, Doug Fowley's first son. Shelby Payne with Dorothy Lamour meets Natalie Wood. Selfish, vain, bright but not brilliant, brooding, a spoiled bitch from Oregon, the Beaver State. Her father was William Wallace Payne, the lumber tycoon. He died mysteriously in 1932 after the stock market crashed. As for my father, Daniel Vincent Douglas Fowley, grew up in New York City, born in the Bronx to Irish immigrant, milkman, sculptor, motorcycle rider John Fowley and his wife Anna. So a child was born and started life on Weatherly Drive between Burton Way and Wilshire Boulevard. That's right where the that hotel with the parallel world. You remember we talked about going to the whatever it's called. What is that called? Hermitage. Yeah, Hermitage. It was right at Burton Way. So he's born, it looks like, right at that parallel world place in beautiful Beverly Hills with a bad boy dad and silver spoon mother. Dad was more interested in me than Mom was. She wanted her little monster in diapers to grow up fast so she could dress me up as a leading man and haul me around Hollywood. My father, on the other hand, didn't want to show me off because I'd be competition for him. He was afraid of competition. We went from Weatherly Drive in Beverly Hills to Tiger Tail Road in Brentwood, another rich white part of town. Tiger Tail Road was upscale, much more so than Weatherly Drive, which is in a boring part of Beverly Hills. There's no poor part of Beverly Hills, but there are boring parts. Kim Fowley could talk at 10 months, could read and write by 1.5. It freaked out my mom, so she placed me in a foster home. Oh, man, that's pretty bad, eh? The kid's too smart.
Mm-hmm.
Put him away. The problem started for me and my mother around 1940, maybe. It was just before my first birthday, and all her family members were there, waiting for baby's first word. I was the baby. Only my first words weren't mama or dada. My first words were, quote, I have a question. Why are you bigger than me? Why? Because they were why? Why?
Tell me why.
That's our chorus. My chorus and my band. You say yellow Y at the right time. What they should have done was pick me up off the floor, put me in a high chair, and say, quote, welcome to conversational adult America. When did you learn how to form sentences? How brilliant are you? You're a gifted child, and we'd love to know more about you. Instead, my mother picked me up, started crying, and pushed me away from her like I was a stinking piece of meat, then grabbed me under her arm and ran across the lawn into the dressing room near the swimming pool. She put me on the floor. Quote, she says, I gave birth to a fucking genius, was her statement, and she turned on the record player. There was a Carmen Miranda record on it. I couldn't read then, but I recognized the music, and there was a picture of the RCA dog on this shellac 78, a real heavy thing. She says, okay, little baby, enjoy the music. So she slammed the door and ran back to the house, and everyone consoled her because she had a little baby who spoke in complete sentences. That's a pretty original fucking beginning. Man. He said, I learned 2 things that day, dear reader. 1, be careful what you say to insensitive people. And 2, welcome to the music business. Oh, they're going to park me in music. They're going to park me in music and I'm supposed to interact. No, it's the question. Oh, they're going to park me in music and I'm supposed to interact with a spinning disc? Is that what my reality is going to be? So be it. I'd better get used to this because I don't want to be beat up. I don't want to be murdered. I don't want to be hurt. So I'll try to watch my tongue to watch what I say. Another year goes by. I had a dog named Rusty, an Irish setter. One day the Japanese planes bombed Pearl Harbor. My dad ran off and joined the U.S. Navy to kick ass. Dad's gone. Mom donates the dog, Rusty, to the canine corps and decides to dump me off on her mother in Portland, Oregon. She's hoping that Dad will die in battle and that she can marry husband number 2, a rich guy, because my dad was just a B-movie actor. She needed a rich guy. I remember going from L.A. to Portland in 1941 during the blackouts. They thought the Japanese were going to come over in their airplanes and bomb the west coast of America. So there were blackouts and air wardens, and the train had no lights, and the windows had black curtains. When we got to Portland, we went to Mom's ancestral home on Aspen Street. I had my own room. My mother... Oh, by the way, Bill, we're ending here, Bill. Let me just tell Bill. Closing up shop, Bill. Closing up shop. In 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Closing early. It's Labor Day or something. I need what?
You need popcorn with canned pepper.
Yeah, that's right. Closing up shop in 10 minutes, Bill. So now I press the panic button a couple of times so he wakes up.
And poor Bill.
I think we just heard it. We just heard the fucking panic button. I never heard it before. I don't know why that happened. And maybe we'll be able to sit around and talk a bit, or maybe not. I don't know. But,
are you back on later,
so, what?
Are you going to be back on later?
No. Yeah, Bill.
So later, Father.
Gone. No more show. I've had enough. No more show on Sunday. But others are I'll put but others are welcome to call in.
Why?
That's right.
Jeez.
Well, because we don't have our inspiration here, but others can call in and talk. I don't know if Bill will be able to manage that because he'll keep the phone line open and what does he broadcast? I don't know. That's he can figure out the logistics of that. Or maybe
we've got another pink ticket.
Another pink slip? Did you say pink slip?
Did we got another pink ticket? Yeah.
Yeah. Pink
Airways
slip.
are clear.
That's right.
Later on. Yeah.
So he says, I had my own room. My mother parked me there and went back to Hollywood. She was an aspiring actress at that point, and like all women during wartime, she was also Rosie the Riveter, making airplanes. There was no gasoline and there was no hosiery. Hosiery, what's that? Oh, that's nylons. They were making war materials out of oil products and whatever makes up nylons. So little Kim Fowley got to sit up in Portland and wait for Mummy. One day my grandmother took me to see Bambi. I knew something was wrong because I had never been taken to a movie theater before. I was allowed to listen to the radio. Or it's another thought. I was allowed to listen to the radio. I heard Our Girl Sunday and Lux Radio Theater and Lowell Thomas. The Dorsey brothers had some sort of show, and I heard a lot of Ferdy Groff doing Grand Canyon Suite and stuff like Rhapsody in Blue. After Bambi, she took me to the dentist, and the dentist said, this boy is going to have a lifetime of dental problems. He has an upside-down bite, a deformity. Unquote. My grandmother calls my mother crying. He's deformed. I don't want a deformed grandchild. I don't know when the deformity is going to stop. I'm going to send him back to you on a train. We'll tie him to the chair. He'll piss and shit in his diapers, but you pick him up at Union Station. And then he gives a poem. And he says, I rode from Oregon alone to Los Angeles, roped into a seat, pissing and shitting the whole way. On the way to the train station, I saw a truck full of turkeys on their way to being slaughtered. It was raining, and the turkeys knew they were about to get murdered, and they were crying and whimpering in this open truck. And they all looked at me, and I looked at them, and I knew I was doomed for life. I was deformed. I was being sent back alone, 1,000 miles away, alone, in the middle of a fucking war. And it was at that moment, at the age of 3, that I formulated the idea for a song I would one day write, a song that Jimi Hendrix recorded in 1967 called Fluffy Turkeys. 1,000 miles of blackouts later, the train pulls into Union Station. Mom was there wearing Marlene Dietrich slacks, looking like some chick from the Weimar Republic. She took me to Culver City to a foster home. Me and Mrs. Diamond were my new parents. Bernice Diamond was the woman's name. I never got the husband's name. He was Mr. Diamond. He used to sit in the front room and drink himself to death, and there were 20, maybe 22 children there in a giant room, all on mattresses and sleeping bags. The only food we had was cream of wheat. If we were good kids, we had cinnamon toast. That's all we ate. Right out of a Charles Dickens book, David Copperfield style, My Pickpocket Pagan-Type Den of Madness and Horror. My Pickpocket Pagan-Type Den of Madness and Horror, 1942 to 1946. I'm not going to read this book. This is horrible. This guy had a horrible life for a few minutes. It's depressing me. This is the first book I ever read that depressed me. Can you imagine being put on a fucking train, strapped to a chair, with nobody around, you're 2 years old or something, and they send you 1,000 miles down the western coast? Gee, crazy parents.
No, Dickens had nothing on this true life story, Bob.
Yeah, this is heavy. We should make a movie out of this. This will be Dobbstown's first movie project. The life of Kim Fowley. He says...
Bob, Roxy's overburdened with movies at the moment, so she doesn't want another movie.
Who's she?
Roxy. She's got 100 movies.
She doesn't watch movies. She doesn't take anything in. She just makes her own stuff. But the thing is, this is the life. This guy is a close friend of Zappa's in a way for a while. This is the life Frank missed. He could have been this guy, but he didn't. My mother would visit now and then. She was under contract with Warner Brothers, a starlet. She was also an Adrian model and a Goldwyn girl at various times. She would bring me to Warner Brothers as a cock blocker. So when the guys tried to pull their cocks out, when she went by to get her gasoline ration card or hosiery, I started screaming and yelling when I saw the tip of the penis, and she'd say, quote, "What are you doing in front of my little boy? Give me that fucking hosiery and my goddamn card." So, but she set up the kid to see the guy's cocks, and when the guys tried to pull their cocks out, I guess they were going to do something to her. The kid would start yelling. Or, no, the kid would be there so she could yell. And then she'd wink at me, and I'd wink back, and we'd run out of there, and she'd give me a hot fudge sundae. She goes, quote, "Well, you blocked him. Thank you." I'd say, "You're welcome." So he says, so imagine a crippled child. He's conspired with his mother because she's pretty and everybody wants to get her. So imagine a crippled child cock-blocking for a Dorothy Lamour, Natalie Wood type with no talent for acting. That's how I learned how hard it was to be a woman in Hollywood in show business. A lot of people would accuse me later on for being a womanizer, but I sympathize with women who are pieces of meat for men in business. My mother was an usherette at the Fox Wilshire Theater on Beverly Drive in Wilshire. Plus, she was building airplanes. He couldn't provide a place for me to live. That's why I was in this foster home type of setup. Sometime I was between 4.5 and 5.5. Polio. I was in kindergarten, nursery school when it happened. Permanent paralysis. Jesus Christ, see? This is not wise to read this book. This is the life of the devil.
It's going to get worse and worse and worse.
Bob, it's going to get worse. It's horrible.
And then he makes up a band. It's not even, doesn't even exist. He gets in the recording studio and has a #1 hit. I mean, that's pretty incredible. Everybody's heard Alley Oop. I mean, and they didn't even exist, the band. This guy is like the agency of the mafia. He's the front end of the mafia. I was moved from the foster home to the hospital. Look, I can't stop reading it. It's so fucking fascinating. I was moved from the foster... I'm being sucked in. I'm being drawn into this hellhole. Yeah. I was moved from the foster home to the hospital. What?
It's like an itch. You got to keep scratching.
That's right.
It's like an itch. You got to keep scratching.
Shut up. Let me finish it. The fucking show's starting in 10 seconds. I was moved from the foster home to the hospital to the foster home. I was traumatized like rape victims and the car wreck victims are traumatized. I have no memory of the rehabilitation, the treatment, the pain, the screaming, the madness, because somebody, maybe me, directed me psychologically to focus on what was going on outside of this experience. Here comes Frank.